Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Warpbound podcast. Today, I'm joined by my lovely host,
Leo!
and we're going to be talking about the origins of the Necrons. This one I'm really excited for. How about you?
Me too.
Yeah? All right, well, let's get into it. So, do you want to start with small talk or Warhammer news, baby?
Warhammer news?
Okay, so for Warhammer news, before we get into the main topic, there's been some pretty cool stuff. A lot of like minor model announcements and some White Dwarf stuff for like the kill team and all that. But the one I want to focus on today and give the spotlight, because I just recently did an AOS video on my main channel at Shaker40k, if you're wondering. There's a new, they refreshed like the Lumineth Realm Lords and like their battle traits and stuff, and gave them a new focus, and I think even released a new little like Battle Force box for them, and it looks like a really nice lineup. Here, come. I'm gonna just spin my camera around.
Ooh!
See what I'm saying?
Oh, that's the one I wanted to get, the big old wing one.
Yeah. No, it looks really nice, and here's just this one little footnote to help describe what's going on in the article. We had a fascinating look through the new battle trait for the Lumineth Realm Lords recently, and saw just how fun etching runic magic inscriptions onto the battlefield will be. So much so that we wanted to hear what other members of the Warhammer community thought of it. So they gave it to a guy named Ryan from Threshold Tactics. I believe it's a page that covers like playing the game.
Oh.
And I haven't heard of the name, but I think he's a fellow content creator. You should go check him out. Let me see. Threshold Tactics. Let's look into it right now. Why not? Apparently it's a whole thing. They got like a website with merchandise and Age of Sigmar stuff.
What kind of merchandise?
It's objective markers for when you play the game. That's cool. Go check them out. They seem cool. But yeah, just some nice Lumineth Realm Lord stuff, some special magic and things that they can do on the battlefield now. Models are looking sick, as always. Holy crap, look at this guy. Here, so I don't have to keep spin. Oh, my phone's dead. Never mind. I'll just show you later. I'll show you later, but there's a cool picture here. But yeah, alright. Well, some Elvish stuff. Oh, and I think that the Disciples of Tzeentch, so the birds and stuff, the bird demons and everything, and Age of Sigmar also got a little bit of a refresh. Got some new rules and stuff for magic shenanigans. So that's pretty cool. You should look into it if you're interested in Age of Sigmar at all, you know. But on a small talk? Okay, well, let's go into small talk. How about you open us up with small talk?
I recently opened a crochet business. Of just making keychains, something simple. And it's been going very well. I've sold 5 things.
Yeah. And you just opened too.
Yeah.
You have to like stress it's very recent and you're already making your first sales, which is really, really good. Because that first sale is the hardest. Yeah. But continue.
We already sold 5 things. And I have 6 orders to make.
Yeah.
So that's really nice.
No, that's a big deal. Don't get it twisted, you know, it's not like we're moving thousands of product yet or anything, you know, but like I said, the first sale, that first buy is the hard part, you know. But if you can get a loyal customer out of this, and this customer seems very enthusiastic because of how much they're ordering and everything.
Yeah, they order like 4 stuff.
And there's a couple other people that ask for different things, right? So you already have a growing customer base. You know what I mean? And if they liked what they already bought, right, and they're like, we need more right now, you know, and they
talk with their friends.
Exactly, and then they're gonna buy. They'll be satisfied with their purchase. They're talking about it with their friends right now. When they get the new ones, it's gonna spark more conversation. People see it. You got what I'm saying? Yeah. So like you're already building your network, even though it's just a couple sales. At the end of the day, with a couple people, that's a big deal because those couple people represent the first ones, which again are always the most difficult. So that's really exciting for you. I haven't been doing too much in terms of hobby. Actually, never mind. I just lied straight to your face. I've been playing a lot of tabletop sim Warhammer. I've been getting back into playing Warhammer, but digitally rather than with physical models. With my friends, I've been teaching them, and they just keep dragging me onto the game. They're like, we have to play more, you know. And I'm just teaching them as we play the game. I tried out my World Eaters, had a bunch of fun, and just a silly game. It wasn't like well balanced or anything. It was like a 1v1v1, and the map wasn't well set out for it or anything. So it wasn't a great teaching game, but they were insistent on making the 1v1v1 work. So I was like, okay. And so we did that, and then I played some Black Templars, and we had a lot of fun with that game. That was a 2v1 that time. And just recently, I played an actual legitimate game of Warhammer where it's just one-on-one, like it should be, and like God intended. And I had a lot of fun. I was trying Death Guard in my buddy's Orcs. He was trying Orcs for the first time. I played Death Guard for the first time. It was kind of brutal. He did a lot of damage early out the gate because the thing about my list is that you gotta understand, like I have 9 units for 2,000 points. That's not a lot of people. Like I don't like, especially the way that I was playing Death Guard, but Death Guard in general, they're really tough, but they're elite. You know what I mean? So you can't take too many people. You're not really swamping the board. And he had a huge horde and a big old stompa. And the first turn was a little scary. He got more damage in than I wanted him to. He wiped out a unit and then hurt my tank. Almost killed it in the first turn, which would have sucked. But I did not want to lose that point holder in the back. And then basically after that, his rolls were just kind of going horrible, you know,
Just
and
once.
I was just punishing his positioning. You know what I mean? Like, after the thing that was scary for me were like the first 2 turns. If I survive the first 2 turns, then my game plan works and I win. And I just did everything in my power to survive the first 2 turns, both by playing defensively and trying to avoid some shooting from some certain angles, and getting into melee combat and just wiping out as many numbers as I could as quickly as possible, or like getting him stuck in an engagement range so that he couldn't shoot at some of my units. And I did that right. I played right, and that's why I lived. You know, there's plenty. And also the rolls. The rolls were just going terrible, and my rolls were going great. I got so many sixes that night. Oh my god, it was just sixes, sixes. I barely missed anything.
Six.
No, literally just sixes flying everywhere, man. It was kind of brutal, you know, because like even when there was a chance for him to get the game back, it was like, okay, your game is basically being decided right here on this turn, right? And you know, depending on how this next fight phase goes, we'll see what happens. And he just fucking dies, like brutally. And we both looked at the table, and he's like, "Yeah, no, you don't have anything left." Like, so that kind of sucked. I think if he had better rolls, they had every chance to be a more competitive game, you know. But like his rolls were just brutal, and you just can't do anything about that. If the dice aren't working with you, the dice aren't working with you. I've had games like that in person plenty of times where like I'll be doing great, and then like my game plan will like crumble because like just enough dice rolls failed in a row where it's like fuck, like in order to win the game, I needed this to happen, and now like it's up in the air, and now he has to screw up just as bad or he wins. You know, there's plenty of situations that happen like that. At the end of the day, that's what spices up the game, is that aspect of chance. You know, you can't set something up to where you win guaranteed every time. The dice can always just take it from you if they want to. You know, but yeah, okay, that's my hobby time. I'm probably gonna make some videos about that. Oh, I also was editing a Skaven video, and I made a little short off of it. Got some subscribers off of that. Almost to 100. Almost to 100 on the main channel. So what I'm really hoping for is that there's a point. I know that it doesn't really work like this, and it really depends on a video doing well, but I'm hoping that there's a point where like you cross a threshold where maybe the growth starts going up. You know what I mean? Because like when you're in the really low range, I get it. Like it's slow. It's YouTube doesn't really know you yet. People on YouTube don't really know you yet. But I'm hoping that maybe like once you get, I don't know, a couple hundred people, like you start spreading a little faster or something. You know what I mean? I don't know. One can hope. Yep. But maybe this podcast will take off and that'll take care of it for me. You know?
Yep.
Who knows?
Oh, yeah.
But all right. Kind of long small talk today, but
yeah,
that means that's good. We're ready for a good conversation. You ready to start learning about Necrons?
Yes.
All right, let's get into it. So, sorry, my pompadour is all over the place. Okay. So, in order to talk about the Necrons, we got to go way, way, way back. Remember when I was telling you about the Eldari and the Necrons in our faction first looks? Yeah. How they were really, really old races, and they did something called the war. They were a part of something called the War in Heaven. So they're some of the oldest races alive in the galaxy right now, if not the oldest races alive in the galaxy, especially the Necrons. The Necrons are older than the Eldari. So as far as we know, they're the oldest, like, alien species in our galaxy. and they began something called the Necron tier, not the Necrons. There's a split in their race when they became the Necrons, but they were originally the Necron tier when they were made out of flesh and blood and bone and died like normal people. They were an ancient race with short radiation blighted lives. They lived. Remember the Giga Cancer that I told you about? Yeah. So they were super intelligent. They were really good at science, but the one thing that they couldn't figure out is how to stop getting super cancer every single time they were born. They were like, it was a genetic flaw in their makeup, and it had something to do with their uber powerful sun on the home planet they were born on, and even when they moved away from it and like continued spanning their galactic civilization, it was just something about their genetic code was innately flawed, that they lived really short lives, and they just got turbo cancer and died. Like it wasn't good. They were pretty angry about it, due to the fact that they were so short-lived and in general kind of lived painful existences, having to deal with cancer, all the time. They were obsessed with death and tombs and like immortality as a concept, right? Just death and the cycle of life in general just kind of occupied their mind space all the time. So very kind of downer society, you know what I mean? Everybody's thinking about the dead all the time because you're gonna die pretty fast, you know. But yeah, so tombs and tomb worlds, like, how the Necrons live on tomb worlds, a lot of that comes from, they were already obsessed with death before they looked like skeletons, you know what I mean? So a lot of their artistic proclivities and their ways of building tombs and stuff to, like, be encased in and everything, that was already a cultural thing that they had before they turned into Necrons. Okay. They built a vast empire across the galaxy, but they just could not find the cure to their mortality, to their cancer, and they would become jealous of the old ones when they encountered them. Remember the old ones? They made the Eldari and the orcs. They were like these god frog things that were just like seeding life and spreading magic everywhere and just having a great time. Well, they bumped into the Necron tier, and the Necron tier were like, hey, can you please give us some sunscreen? We have turbo cancer. You know what I mean? And the frogs were like, no. Like, you were made this way and we won't intervene. They made life and interjected it, but it was a part of their moral code that, like, once the life was there, like, just don't touch it. If it dies, it dies. If it survives, it survives. If it prospers, if it fails, that's not our business. We're just kind of here watching the garden grow. You know what I mean? And the Necron tier were not a really great plant. You know what I mean? They just were struggling. And they asked for help. The frog said no. And the Necron tier got very angry after that. And one thing that about the Necron tier is that we're told that they were kind of petty from the very beginning. They hold grudges, you know what I mean? They're very, like I said, very petty people. They hold grudges against each other. They never forget it. They pass it on to future generations.
Like old people?
Yeah, just like get off my lawn, and then they like write it down in a book so that they remember that this person did it at this time of day, you know what I mean? And then they just spend their short life just trying to fuck that guy over because they pissed him off one time. Yeah, like Necrons are very petty people. So when the frog gods that, from their perspective, have all the power in the universe to fix everything, right? When those gods say, nah, just die, lol, you know what I mean? Guess what? Very petty people, they hold on to a grudge. You know what I mean? They were pretty upset. So this would kick off the war in heaven. Necrons fight against the old ones. The Necrons here were trying to attack the old ones, and in finding a common enemy that they all were angry at because they didn't fix their problem for them, they all unified for once and weren't like infighting with each other all the time. Remember how I told you Necrons are infighting, and that's what like they were still doing this when they were flesh and blood, by the way. Like they were infighting the whole time. And then they all realized, wait, we hate that guy more than we hate each other, so we're gonna all fight that guy. And they all tried to fight the old ones. While being Necron tier, the old ones just, like, they weren't a threat at all. The old ones just went and like kind of slapped them and back into their place, and it was just nothing. And when they got totally defeated, despite their immensely advanced technology at this point, because they were still masters of science, like at this point. Okay. Still not able to cure cancer, interestingly enough, but like masters of science. Yeah, like it's very surprising that they couldn't find a cure. Again, it must have been a very deep-rooted issue, you know? Yeah. But after they got just totally schwacked by the old ones, they would start going into civil wars again until the Catan found them, or they found the Catan. The Catan are essentially star gods that were like, if the frogs were the gods of the immaterium, right? So magic and the warp and spirituality and things like that, right? Energy. Then the Catan were masters of the material, right? So the physical space, you know. They were at first they were kind of just like moving clouds of like a living consciousness, just kind of eating stars and like asteroids and things. They just consumed things in real space, while the frog gods prospered off of energy and emotion. You get what I'm saying? Because they drew from the warp. Um, so anyway, the Necrons would find the Catan. The Catan would begin forming personalities. You know what I mean? And like actually becoming gods, especially once they found out that souls are actually pretty tasty, you know, and they would begin like eating souls secretly and realizing that they wanted more of that. And the Catan would offer the Necrons immortality. And if they were, and not only immortality, but immense strength to be able to defeat the frog gods, the old ones. I'll call them the old ones, so we actually use their real name. The Silent King, who was the leader of the Necrons at the time, would agree, and then the entire species would be ordered to undergo something called the biotransference. So the Catan that offered them this deal was called the Deceiver. This was after, you know, the deal, because why would you trust the Deceiver, right? But his name became the Deceiver because he offered them immortality and eternal strength. But when they walked into the biotransference, there was basically, he created these massive furnaces, you know, that would burn their physical form and transmit their consciousness into a robotic shell. But when they were burned, their soul left, and he would consume the souls as they left the biotransference. So he stole their essentially a portion of their lives, like their souls. He stole everything from them. You know, now all they had was their consciousness, and they lose connection to the living realm forever. And they can't, like, they don't go to the warp, nothing. Like that entire portion of existence has just been cut off for them. So he can,
they're technically dead.
Basically, yeah, they're like a living undeath, and if they die, they're gone. They're just gone. They have no energy to go back to anywhere. So
they can't make
no magic, no nothing, nothing. They just lose their connection to reality, you know. Because the warp and the soul and everything is very important in Warhammer, very, very important. So he told them that all he was doing was giving them immortality and this and that, you know what I mean? But he didn't tell them that he was also consuming their souls and taking their chance to ever be like physical flesh and blood again, which they didn't. In their greed and in their lust for power, they took the deal, you know, or the Silent King took the deal specifically, you know, because he made the contract as the leader. And all of them went in there thinking that they were getting this immense power, you know, but a lot of them lost their consciousness too, because one thing is that if they weren't a strong enough Necron tier specifically, with a strong enough consciousness, they would just kind of become mindless robots. You know what I mean? So like a lot of them were just lost through this process too. You know, so like it was a bad deal, and they only realized after the biotransference. Then the Necron tier physical form would be burned away. They'd become the metal form that we all know, the skeletons with the necrodermis, the living metal.
Yeah.
Where the fun thing about, or the interesting thing about the necrodermis is that when it's damaged, it can heal itself, so it can repair. So the necrodermis, living metal, you know, is what that is supposed to mean. And the Necron tier would become the Necrons. Now immortal and kind of dead and really angry, they would realize that they would revolt against the Catans later. That's my bad. We were moving to the second phase of the War in Heaven, where the Necrons and the Catan team up with their new forms to destroy the old ones in a galaxy-wide war. This is when the War in Heaven is like an actual war, because before it was like a kid threw a tantrum and they just went, and then the Necrons were done. You know what I mean? Or Necron tier. But now that they're coming back with star gods and their new physical forms, this was a full-out war. And this, from what we understand of this period in time, this is like the worst war ever, like in the history of the galaxy. Planets were blown up, suns disappeared, black holes were being thrown around, just consuming star systems. Trillions upon quadrillions of souls died, like, in this war. It is the most catastrophic event. This was like like the end of the world almost. You know what I mean? Or like the end of the galaxy, basically. Like this.
Yeah, because you're literally throwing like black holes out
Yeah,
there.
no, it just the star systems destroyed, destabilized, all the death and agony that was occurring because of this war actually turned the warp from a peaceful place into the hell that we know it as today. The warp used to be stable. Like the warp used to
Aww.
be a peaceful place where souls were just kind of, happily dancing around before they came back to the next cycle. And then all of the horrible agony and death and fear and catastrophe that followed the war in heaven created the warp that we know of, where the dark gods would be born and all the dark emotions and demons and everything would begin to pour out. It's because of this war.
So it's their fault.
Yes. And specifically also targeting the old ones who helped stabilize everything and were an essential portion of the cog. They had to disappear. And the old ones would create the psychic races like the Eldars and the Orcs and supposedly the humans as well during this time. But ultimately, the old ones would retreat and vanish from existence. They weren't they have never used the word killed, like they were destroyed necessarily. They vanished without a trace, as if they left the galaxy.
They probably have the power to just go to another galaxy.
That's what I would assume too. I mean, the way that they seemed, they were kind of like a just let it do what it needs to do, and the galaxy started trying to kill them, so they were like, okay, next one.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Bye bye.
And so after this, it began to settle, and the Necrons had ultimately defeated the old ones at great cost, immense cost, even with their new forms. It was that. Again, it's the worst war the galaxy has ever seen, or single conflict. You get what I'm saying? But after this, after the dust settled for a second, the Necron would revolt against the Catan, and the Silent King would now realize the horror of soulless immortality. So he would realize now that their souls were gone. This is when they discover that their souls were consumed, and they're like, oh, so we can never fix this. We can't go back to a new healthy form. We can't live normal lives. We can't be connected to life energy anymore or anything. We're just soulless, and like we have to be stuck like this forever, and we can't age and we can't die anymore. We can't engage with the cycle. And in an absolute rage, the Necrons would rebel against the Catans and actually manage to kill their former gods that they would like worship and work with. They would overthrow them and kill them and shatter their souls essentially. In combat. And now, pretty interesting fact, now that the Catan are shattered, they still exist because you don't like kill a god, you know what I mean? You like shatter a god and use its energy in different places because energy can't be destroyed, it just has to change form, right?
Yeah.
But they use the shards of these Catans to like power their stuff, so they like torture them as batteries for like all eternity. Yeah, there's a bunch of Necron models where you can see Catan shards, like faces of like gods, like in electricity, and they're like soul energies being extracted in the machine, and there's Necrons just like watching them. like yeah, it's normal to just use the god as a battery, but that's how advanced Necrons are, so they just took these shards and chucked them in the back of the car to like power the engine.
So they already figured out how to use the gods' energy, but not how to fix. Okay.
Yeah. Don't ask me. I don't get it either. I feel like they would have been able to find the cure to cancer, but apparently their super giga mega cancer was just so super giga mega.
It's so deep in their DNA that's like we just
that might be the exact reason why the old ones didn't help them, by the way, because it wasn't just like an outside force, an unfortunate set of circumstances. It was like no matter how far away they moved from their sun, they all had giga cancer. You know what I mean? So like the old ones went, no, this is your genetics. Like, you get to live with them, and we're going to let you either succeed and find a way to defeat this or die and let another race take over. It's a weird moral quandary, and we don't have a lot of specifics on how the conversation went down. But from what we understand, I can understand the perspective of the old ones, They weren't there to meddle and, like, make one race win over the other. You know what I mean? They were just kind of there to watch and, like, help a galaxy grow. Naturally. But anyway, after they shattered the Catans and gathered the shards to use for whatever they needed to use them for, and it was also kind of like, remember how I said they're petty and they hold on to grudges? Yeah. They're also like purposefully torturing them, as batteries, because like, well, fuck you, like you made us into this, so we'll turn you into one of our machines as well. Petty but effective. And then the Silent King would declare something called the Great Sleep. The Silent King would predict that the Eldar, he would ran algorithms very intelligent, right? Not like psychic or anything. He foresaw that the Eldar would probably take over the galaxy for a little while because they were an up and coming race with immense power, guided by the old ones, given unique technology. You remember them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he would order all of his Necrons to go into a 60 million year stasis inside their tomb worlds. He then, after putting all the Necrons to sleep in their, Mimi nap chambers, he would leave the galaxy in a self-imposed exile. He would exile himself out of the horror and guilt and depression of having put his people through the biotransference without knowing what he was doing to them at the time. He thought it was the best move, and then he realizes that he destroyed the souls of his entire race, and they can never live again.
So they can't reproduce anymore, right?
No, there's no reproduction or anything. No, they're metal. Like that's it.
So.
Yeah.
So there's a possibility they could be dying.
Yeah, 100%. And he would leave the galaxy, and during this 60 million year stasis, a lot of tomb worlds will malfunction. A lot of Necrons would die in their sleep. Because the tomb world's going out, losing power, being destroyed by invaders, the code just malfunctioning and going wrong, So a lot of Necrons would malfunction or be destroyed by enemies catching them in their sleep, as they started to boot up the defensive things. But the Silent King would cut short this great sleep by I have it in my notes in actually a pretty well organized way, so I'll just follow them. That's why I wrote them. Something called the Awakening would happen during Millennium 30 and between Millennium 41. So 40K is in M41, right? And 30K was like the Horus Heresy and everything. So in between here, the Necrons would the Necrons, some tomb worlds would flicker on here and there, right, at the incorrect time. But a lot of Necrons had gone insane over the long sleep. A lot of them were fragmented, as in like no longer allied or not recognizing each other very well as they woke up. And the dynasties, so like how dynasties work in real life, right? Yeah. Like family lines and dynasties, right? The Necrons still held those and maintained those even in their new metal form. And being Necrons, they would go, "Oh, I'm awake, and the galaxy is mine." And then the other dynasty would go, "Actually, this star system was mine 60 million years ago." And they're like, "No, it's actually mine." And then they just start fighting each other because that's Necrons. Like it's just what they are, And then during the modern era, the Indomitus era, where Tyranids began to attack, the Silent King would return just before the Tyranids started like encroaching in on the entire galaxy. Because you remember the U-turn thing a couple episodes ago? So the Silent King, in his exile, he's just in the abyss in between galaxies, just the eternity that is in between star systems, you know what I mean? And he's just kind of sitting there in the void, and then he sees the Tyranids pop up on the map, and he's like, and immediately it just absolutely spins that bitch, like, so that he can get back home, and he is booking it back, and then he starts reawakening everybody. He starts setting out the codes to reawaken everyone, and he's like, "Get your asses up, like, immediately, like something huge is coming."
I just imagine him just like relaxing, and then what am I hearing? And just in the corner you just see a bunch of, just imagine like ants, but if you were like a smaller animal than ants.
Yeah.
And they were just coming out in hordes and just.
No, literally, no. That's exactly what happened, And yeah, he would begin initiating wake-up protocols. Necrons would start popping up everywhere and become a huge problem for the Imperium and everybody, because they're like, "What the hell is happening?" Like, what, like, and because like I believe we had encountered Necrons here and there, but it's like weird. Like, they have really advanced technology. What's going on with these guys, And then they all started waking up, and we're like, "Oh shit, they're everywhere!" Like there's tomb worlds everywhere. Like cities would just start like crumbling as the Necrons like started opening the gates and like coming back out. So
what I'm understanding was that before they went to sleep, they were basically all over the galaxy.
All over the place, yeah. But the war had cost them so much, and they knew that the Eldari were going to come back with a counterattack. So instead of dying, they went to sleep and hid away under the surface of the planet in the tombs that they had created. Because remember how they're obsessed with tombs and graveyards and death and everything? So they created tombs to sleep in, you know, and then they initiated a protocol where they all went to bed, essentially, and sealed themselves inside their pyramid tombs underneath the ground. And the Silent King was like, everything should be dead within 60 million years. They're all probably going to kill each other anyway. So we'll just wake up when nobody's here and take over everything and figure out what we can do.
Oh, boy.
And they were wrong. They were...
If only they knew.
They were really wrong. They woke up, just, oh, shit! You know, like, they tried to, like, walk out on their front porch thinking everything was okay, and there's, like, gunshots going off and screaming and fire, and they're like, huh, okay. Well, I guess they didn't die.
Like, huh. So you're still out here, huh?
Yeah, basically. And yeah, they would do some crazy stuff, like create something called the Pariah Nexus, which is a whole thing, you know. But it was like an attempt to like counter the warp and demons and stuff that the Silent King created. But he did it in secret, so a lot of the Necrons didn't like that. And the Silent King is trying to work in secret to like make the dynasties unite again, you know, so that he can get a full force together. To then take the galaxy and actually like try and defend against the Tyranids together while not fighting each other, because that's the last thing he needs, you know. He does have a rival called the Storm King who woke up. He was a general during the time of the War in Heaven and everything. Very, very successful general. Very dangerous. One of the only people who could rival the Silent King in terms of genius and tactical mind and strength and everything. And the Storm King is rebelling against the Silent King, or the Storm King. I think it's the Storm King. The Storm King and the Silent King are at odds. The Storm King believes that he's a false leader who damned them to soulless existence forever, and he needs to be overthrown because he's a fool. And the Silent King believes that they all need to unify and become one so that they can defeat all the threats in the galaxy and prepare to defend from the Tyranids. And so yeah, those are two major separations in the factions, and then all the little dynasties underneath both of these guys are still arguing with each other, like throwing tantrums and fighting amongst each other like siblings or something. So yeah, that's the thing. The thing about Necrons is that the biggest thing slowing them down is the fact that they fight each other all the time rather than fighting together and just unifying against a single threat, you know. If every Necron tomb world that is alive right now just allied together and began fighting as one force,
you know how cool that'd be?
It would be really cool. It would probably be Jover. Like, if they did that, it would probably take every other race to stop fighting each other and focus on the Necrons. You have a chance of making it. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because, like, it's a big deal when a single tomb world wakes up. The second a Necron tomb world wakes up, that's like end of the world event, evacuate, send in the Space Marines, send in the Sisters of Battle. We have to slow them down, like, stop everything, you know what I mean? Like, dedicate your resources to that. Yeah, the Necrons waking up is a big deal.
Are they still waking up right now?
Yeah, they wake up all the time, you know. But most of them are up by now.
Cause some of them like,
but
I'm late to the party.
What the point I'm trying to make is that they're dangerous when they're alone and fragmented. When they unify, they'd be almost unstoppable.
Damn.
Because the Necrons are just so powerful. So powerful.
They're powerful yet
petty and stupid, despite being such super geniuses. So they nerf themselves. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, they give everybody a chance by just being stupid. Which, like, a lot of Necron players or something, or Necron glazers or whatever what you want to call it. It's not even like, I'm not even trying to say it like negatively. You know what I mean? Just people who really support Necron and think like, oh yeah, Necron could defeat everybody. Like, they say, oh, if they just, you know, didn't do this thing that they always do, then they would win. And like, fair enough. Like, good point. But like, also, like, Necrons are not just kind of assholes. Like, they are genetically assholes. Like, this is how they operate.
It's like a balance between the Necrons. Whoever created the Necrons were like, they're so powerful, yet they're so messed up in their own group.
Yes, exactly. They have no unity. Zero unity. I would like to remind you, during the Necron tier, they were still fighting. Like, when they had Giga Cancer and were dying all the time, they were still killing each other. For no reason. Like, over stupid arguments. Stupid arguments. You know? So, like, this is something that they've been doing forever. This is just what they are. This is how they operate. And they need something really big to make them stop killing each other. So they kill that, and then they go back to killing each other. You get what I'm saying? So, like, the Tyranids are, like, probably one of the only threats right now. Or, like, the Imperium, if the Imperium wasn't fighting literally everybody all at once, you know? The Tyranids are, like, the one big threat that not only the Necrons are going to have to unify for, but probably everybody. Like, once the Tyranids really go full force, because, like, we've been in the Tyranid area for a really long time now on the tabletop game.
Do Tyranids eat orcs?
Yeah.
They eat everything, right?
They eat everything.
So Tyranids is everybody's enemy.
Yes, Tyranids have, they don't care about any diplomatic, anything. Like, they just don't care. They'll eat everyone. Which is why everyone has to lock in. You know what I mean? Because, like, at the end of the day, like, if we don't stop fighting each other and deal with that thing, it's just going to eat us both. And it's like, and, like, if we want to kill each other later, fine. But, like, let's not get eaten, like, first. So, the Tyranids are kind of like that end-all, be-all enemy that has to be held back, you know?
I reminds me of the Pac-Man.
Yeah. I'm not saying that this is going to happen anytime soon. It probably won't for a very, very, very long time. But if there was ever an event where all the factions, or at least most of the factions, stopped fighting to go fight something else, it's going to be Tyranids. That's going to be the thing. But you got to remember that they got to keep selling models, and to keep selling models, the universe has to keep going. You know what I mean? So there's never going to be an event that ends it all. There's going to be events that risk it, you know what I mean? And then we're going to make it last second, and then we're going to somehow make it so all the factions survived. You know what I mean?
Somehow the Tyranids just like, bye-bye.
Right. But the Tyranids are never going to fully leave the setting, because then there's an entire army and faction that's gone. Right. Like, you can never erase a faction completely from the game. You can remove them as sub-factions, you can roll them into other books, like has happened before, you know? But, like, you're never just going to, like, delete the Eldari from the setting. You can't do that. You would lose all your Eldari players, you know? And I think the Eldari are fucking awesome, and it would be just a terrible decision to delete them from the game, you know? So that's just not going to happen, you know? So how do you balance that well? I don't know. You have to ask the Games Workshop authors, but...
I just want to look behind their shoulder and be like,
what you doing?
Oh, that's a plot. Okay, right there. Yep.
If you want to read some Necron stuff, I have a really good book. Really, really good book. Oh, what's it called? The Infinite and the Divine? The Infinite and the Divine? Something like that, yeah.
I knew you had some Warhammer books.
Yeah, The Infinite Divine is a really, really good Necron book, though.
Nice.
Really good Necron book. You should check it out.
What is it about?
It's about these two rival Necrons, Trazyn and Orokin, two of, like, some of the strongest Necrons in existence, you know? Just kind of having a petty back and forth argument for, like, thousands of years. Like, Trazyn wants to get this thing, and Orokin is like, no, fuck you, I want it too, and they kind of, like, just... There's a scene in the book, without spoiling too much, there's a scene in the book where Trazyn uses this immensely valuable resource that is, like, it cannot be stated how valuable this resource is. And he uses it just to teleport into Orokin's room, slap him, like, while he's working on something, and then teleport out. And it was just like, fuck you. And, like, he slaps him because he's angry that he did something, like, a few hundred years ago or something, and then he teleports back out. And Orokin's like, fuck you. You know?
So while they're letting go of their grudges...
No, they hold on. They hold on forever.
It's like, oh, we can never one and be like,
There's a scene in the book where they're in a court case, right? And Necrons live forever, right? So they don't really care about time, you know? Like, a day to them is nothing, right? Like, a day to them is nothing. An hour is nothing. Their concept of time is way different from ours, right? So court cases can last very long. Like, I'm talking hundreds of years of just a bunch of old dudes. Present me the evidence. And then they look over it for, like, a few decades. You know, and you're just sitting there, like... You know, like, just like, waiting for it to be over, you know? And Orokin is something called a diviner. And he has such a complex understanding of science that he can turn back time, right? Oh. So he can time travel, and he turns back time in this location over and over and over and over again to try and get a case won against Trazyn, right? But Trazyn, or Trazyn, Trazyn, I'm just gonna call him Trazyn.
Mm-hmm.
Trazyn is so well spoken and so charming and so intelligent that he starts picking up on the time thing like later on, you know? But for like the first 100 times he doesn't notice, and the like Orican keeps coming up with a new argument and he loses it and he turns back time and Trazyn keeps beating it like over and over and over and over because it's not a legitimate court case. Like Orican is falsely accusing him of something and he's trying to get him framed for it. And he has to redo the time thing like over and over and over and over again. And then like a couple hundred times in, Trazyn goes, something's up here. I know something's wrong. You know what I mean? And then he wins the court case anyway because Trazyn's just that intelligent. Orkin's like, fuck! You know, like he wasted so many years just trying to beat him on this one thing. So that just kind of gives you a general vibe of the book. It's great. I need to read it again. Very, very fun. I would suggest that you read it too. But what do you think of the Necrons so far? And their origins, like where they come from. I gave you a very short, like beat to beat kind of thing roadmap.
I had a question. I mean, they're the oldest race as we know.
Yep.
One of the old ones. Were they created by the
frogs?
The old ones?
Yeah. That's never confirmed or denied.
So they could have been one of the first ones in the galaxy.
We know that the old ones created other species. We know that they created Eldari. We know that they created orcs, and it's highly implied that they created things like humans, right? As for the Necrons, we do not know. They do not confirm if the old ones were here first or if the Necrons were here first. The Necrons were well established, though.
Yeah.
And the old ones were kind of like floating around. So I don't know how long. I mean, you gotta imagine it probably took the Necrons a good long while to start becoming space travelers and advance to those heights. So that gives them a lot of time, the old ones and the Necrons. The old ones are probably aware of the Necrons' existence if they didn't create them themselves.
They were just like minding their own business until like, we noticed this old one's creating life.
Yeah.
So fix us!
Right. So there's two ways that this can go. Necrons are somehow older. Okay, here's a better way to put it. The Necrons lived in the galaxy first. And the old ones came to the galaxy and started doing stuff and interacting with stuff and all that, right? Yeah. And then they bumped into each other eventually. Or the old ones created the Necrons the same way that they created like humans, you know, where they just kind of seeded the first bits of like micro life, you know, like microbiology, for evolution, you know, and the Necrons naturally evolved like any race. And the reason
bombastic lungs, cancer.
And they had just a terrible genetic lottery, you know. And then the old ones would eventually circle back after a very long time, and the Necrons would go, "Hey, we noticed that you can do all this stuff. You need to fix us." And the old ones were like, "This is how you came out. Like we did." Like, from what I understand, I don't think the old ones are the kind of things that would like forcefully make them have cancer forever. I think they kind of just let it happen, and that's how it happened. And it's like,
I feel like
sucks.
They just give out the elements.
Yes.
And then over time, those elements unfortunately created the wrong things.
They use the energies from the warp to help create life or help it grow naturally, and then they just let it happen. And that was what they told them. Like, no, like we don't do that. You know, like we've made other races. We don't help them like that. You know, you just have to figure it out. And then the Necrons, being petty, started the whole war thing. Fucked up the warp, made it into hell, eventually gave birth to the Dark Gods because what they did, you know what I mean? Like, the Necrons kind of fucked everyone over. Yeah. If you really want to talk about, like, actually, I don't hear people talk about it from this angle. The Necrons screwed everyone over with the War in Heaven. They didn't have to do that. Like, they didn't have to fight them, you know? Like, they could have tried to continue to develop the whole, you know, anti-cancer thing on their own. They could have moved on. They could have let it go, but they're Necrons, so they don't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, the Necrons are actually kind of the biggest assholes in the galaxy ever. You know, because they fucked everything. Like, they literally just fucked everyone over. For no reason, you know? But the thing is, whether the Necrons did it that way or they did it another way, they were going to do it eventually. Because, like, they were so powerful, they were so intelligent, but so petty, that they were going to meet the humans, or they were going to meet some other race, and they were going to mess something up somehow, you know? Because you can't be that unstable, you know, in terms of, like, relationships and everything, without eventually leading to some catastrophe, which it did, you know? But, yeah. The Necrons kind of screwed everyone over.
So smart, yet so dumb.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing how they're so intelligent in certain regions, and then other regions like, are you kidding? Like, really?
Yeah.
You can turn back time with science, but you can't say sorry. You know what I mean? And like fix things. No.
Wait, but turning back time, they can only do it for a portion.
I don't know the exact limitations, and it's really like I don't remember exactly how Orican uses it, but like he can turn back time. Like that's 100% something he can do, which is crazy. Which is absolutely crazy, man. I don't think he's turning back all the galaxy's time.
No, just like the
from
one integration.
that area that he's in. He's creating like a time warp. Yeah, he's creating like a time pocket essentially, and turning back the clock on that specific area. You know what I mean? Because I don't think he was literally hitting rewind on everything everywhere. That's just stupid. That's not how time works.
It's more him.
Yeah.
What he was doing back that time.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was limited, but he could turn back the council and Trazen. So they would go, you know what I mean? And then he would go, play. I'm going to try and do it from this angle. And Trazen would hear it and go, oh, and like beat it. And Orkin would go, oh, and then like dial it back and try and beat him like over and over and over and over and over again.
Oh.
I can't remember how many attempts it was, but it was countless. Like Orkin just kept going and going, and he just couldn't beat Trazen in wordplay.
Did he ever stop?
Something made them stop. I think Trazen got onto him and accused him of doing that, and the council was like,
Are you doing now, sir? No.
And once he was caught, I think he was, you know what I mean? It was a whole thing, but that kind of blew up in Oregon's face. Yeah, Oregon. But, then I think, I'm not going to tell you everything. There's so much shenanigans that they get into. There's plenty of serious moments, but there's also so many comedic moments where they just do something stupid to each other. It's like,
teleport.
Like, you guys have, like, god-level technology, and you're, like, slapping each other. Like, you know what are you doing? You know? It's just, but that's the fun of Necrons, too. That, like, Necrons have a lot of personality, and they're so flawed, it makes them more interesting. Because if they were just all-powerful and had no flaws or anything, they would be really boring.
And the way the authors make them kind of balance.
Yes. No, continue.
So powerful... I mean, not because of the iron, but so powerful, intelligent, but they're also so dumb to each other that they can join at the right times.
Well, there's an interesting divide meta-wise, not in lore, but there's an interesting divide with Necrons, where so there's two kinds of Necrons. It's called Old Kron and New Kron, right? Old Kron was before they were rewritten and turned into the Necrons that you know today. In earlier editions of the game, Necrons had no lore. They had no names, no personalities, nothing. They were a faction purely built on horror, essentially. They were kind of like the Tyranids, but in a different way, where all their lore was like, we don't know where they're coming from, we don't know who they are, we don't know how old they are. They just come out of the sand, like an undead legion, and just kill everything.
They could have been there the whole entire time.
Right. We knew nothing. They had no lore, and that was on purpose. They were supposed to be like a mystery, just legion of skeletons that march out of the darkness and kill everything, you know what I mean, and then disappear again. And they were almost like zombies or something, you know what I mean, like zombie mummies, or like the undead, like that, but that kind of horror where it's like, where are they coming from, what's happening, they're killing us all, help, and then the line cuts and you don't know what happened, so you go and investigate. They were that kind of faction. And then they rewrote them to have way more personality, way more lore, way more just so they became an actual thing. You know what I mean? Some people were upset about that. Not to offend anybody, but if you have taste, you're not upset about it. Like, it's just a good change. Like, having character is objectively a good change. Having something to root for and care about, I think, has led to way more positives than
just keep them mysterious.
Than just keeping them like a mysterious whatever. You know what I mean? Like, Tyranids are pretty good about writing their horror, but like, you don't need multiple nids. You get what I'm saying? Like, multiple faceless, characterless, like, just entities that eat, because like that's the biggest drawback from Tyranids, right? If you're a Tyranid fan but you want characters or lore or books or anything like that, you're not getting any. Like, you don't have anything. Like, you that
all they do is
like, what you want a book that's just like 100 pages of nom
Gold lip, nom.
Like, there's nothing to write about from a Tyranid's perspective.
Hear a Space Marine's voice.
Yeah. The best you're ever gonna get as a Tyranid fan in terms of lore and reading is reading somebody else kicking your faction's ass. You know what I mean? Or like winning the day or surviving the invasion. You get what I'm saying? But you'll never get it from the Tyranid's perspective.
Yeah.
Which you shouldn't, because there's nothing. They wouldn't be. You don't want to be in the mind of like a rabid animal. You know what I mean? There's nothing that you could not hold a novel for that long.
All we know is that they come from another universe.
Right, and that's all they need to be. I'm okay with Tyranids being written like that, but I'm so happy the Necrons have the lore that they have, because Necrons are so fun. They're so petty. Their visual design is amazing, and their writing is incredible.
Mm-hmm. I like the big tombs.
Oh, it's not the obelisk. It's the like monolith or something like that.
And also like I'm assuming it's somebody powerful, but it's like a big old Necron guy, kind of naked, I don't know how to describe.
With the lightning coming out of him with the 2 wings. That's the shard of the Void Dragon. It's a Catan god that they killed. They overthrew.
Oh.
But he's extremely powerful. They use him as a weapon. Like they use that shard as a weapon.
Oh. That shard?
Remember how I said that they shattered them?
So they use part of his body?
It's not body, but like energy.
So it's like a fake body with the god's energy?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
They gave him a case.
So they're literally pupping the gods?
Yeah.
The Tyranid gods?
Not Tyranid gods, Catan gods.
Catan gods, my bad.
Yeah.
What assholes. I mean the
But they fucked them over.
Yeah,
the Catans, like, the Necrons have thrown a lot of tantrums, okay?
Yeah.
A lot of them were not legitimate. The Catan one, fair enough. You know what I mean? They kind of like ate your souls, you know?
It's a little like freaky.
Yeah.
A little creepy what they're doing,
but like fair play.
Yeah, but at the same time it's like, no, you're right, dude. Keep going.
Yeah. The Catan were assholes.
Keep it up.
But like, yeah. But that also shows you how powerful Necrons are. Like, when all the Necrons united against the Catans, they killed an entire pantheon of gods and used them as batteries. Like, think about how strong they have to be when they're all fighting together against one thing. But then they immediately started fighting each other again, and the Silent King told them all to go to bed. And then we'll rule the galaxy when everybody's dead. And then they woke up and everybody's not dead. Everything's shed. All the dynasties are fighting again. And the Silent King is just sitting there like, oh my god. Like what? Oh my god. Like, y'all are so useless. So yeah. That's the Necrons. That's all the bullet points I have written down. But if you have any questions or anything, I have plenty to tell.
I think it's pretty much...
You feel like we encapsulated the origins pretty well? No last second things you're wondering about.
So right now in the Warhammer 40k, they're alive, they're walking in, they're reawakening. Is there any more as of what they're doing right now?
The Silent King is trying to unify them all to defeat the Tyranids, and the Storm King is trying to unify them all to defeat the Silent King. Yep. And the Pariah Nexus thing is probably one of the biggest things that they're up to right now. But we'll do a whole episode on that. I'm not covering Pariah Nexus lore right now. This should be good.
Is it a big one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's a whole thing. Like, it's a whole thing. But yeah.
Oh, that might be the next podcast because I want to know about that.
You want to learn about the Pariah Nexus? I'd be down to do a Pariah Nexus episode.
Right.
Hey, I need to brush up on it anyway right now. Like, I wouldn't be confident in telling you about it right now because it's been a long time since I've looked into the Pariah Nexus.
Yeah.
I know of it, and I'm pretty sure that, like, off the top of my head, I remember exactly what it is. But, like, I might be wrong. So I just need to reread and make sure that I'm not talking out of my ass, you know, for, like, the next 20 minutes.
Okay. I think that's it.
All right. Awesome. Well, if you enjoyed this podcast, guys, make sure to follow. Please leave a review on any podcast sites that you are listening to. If you're on YouTube, leave a comment and maybe think to follow us on one of the podcast sites that any podcast site you use. We're on Amazon Music, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, and I think we might be on one or two others, but I know those for sure. If you use any of those, please give us a listen there and follow us there because that's going to really help. Once we get some follows and reviews, they actually start pushing us on the podcast platforms, and that's what's really going to lead to this podcast's success. So,
Pow.
yeah, and if you are on my YouTube channel already, @Shaker40k, please do subscribe. That I will be dropping plenty more lore, shorts, all sorts of stuff. We make content on there all the time and stream more Hammer games and a variety of others all the time. But anyway, thank you guys so much for listening, and tune in next week for a Pariah Nexus episode.
Yes.
Oh,
Hopefully.
yeah.
I just have to convince him.
Yeah.